Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and today we are talking World of Warcraft Dragonflight, of course. And we are talking lessons, because as the Jailer has now powered down and Shadowlands becomes essentially a dead expansion walking, while we all wait impatiently for the shiny new rainbow fun times of massive soaring sexy dragon adventures, we are in a position where we can now take a proper look at the last couple of years and the mistakes that the current expansion made, that it would be really nice, you know, if perhaps 10.0 managed to hopefully possibly not repeat maybe. And boy, oh boy, are there some lessons to learn. I think maybe more than any World of Warcraft expansion in recent memory, Shadowlands has had its good points obviously, and there are lessons to learn from its successes too, but also has featured in its design and implementation some of the biggest, sorest, most obvious examples of, yeah, we can probably learn from this, that you can possibly imagine. Some of which Blizz are already showing some very promising signs of learning from and improving on in Dragonflight, and some of which are a bit more worrying, frankly. So join us as we look at the lessons Dragonflight must learn from Shadowlands, okay? Go, 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 go. Patches! Now, you know what the old folks say, a patch in time saves 9 extra months of waiting. And what they were definitely talking about when they came up with that phrase in like 1066 or whatever is World of Warcraft and its patch cadence. And this is definitely one of those things where Blizz need to look to the wisdom of their elders. Because the patch cadence in Shadowlands has been, to put it bluntly, shit. A brief side-by-side comparison between the release schedule of Shadowlands and the other two most recent expansions shows the whole sorry story of major content updates becoming rarer and rarer in their delivery. And I am being very generous with the estimate of 9.2 length there, because it'll definitely be longer than that. Chains of Domination will go down in history as the longest non-final patch in World of Warcraft history. Basically, Dragonflight cannot afford a repeat of this absolute shower. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, come on, Taliesin, be fair. There were some pretty mitigating circumstances as to why the content was so slow coming. The last 2 years on Earth have been a shit show of blood plagues and normal working practices turned inside out, and that is absolutely fair. You are absolutely right. And I don't necessarily blame Team 2 for the glacial pace of Shadowlands patches, but understanding and even sympathizing with the unusual events that led to it doesn't make my experience of having no content to play any more fun. And I would also point you to the fact that the gaps between patch releases were already on a trend of getting longer and longer before the Blood Plague even happened. And I would also point you to the fact that if Blizzard are to be believed, then they always only even planned for there to be 2 major patches in Shadowlands, so this was always going to happen anyway, something I find terrifying, because looking at the chart, I think that most players are pretty sure that somewhere along the line, Shadowlands lost a planned patch and had some of its content absorbed into 9.1 and 9.2. I know I'm absolutely convinced that that's the case. I think Blizzard are just lying about planning Shadowlands this way, and actually I hope they're lying, because if this is what they meant to do, then it's even worse. Why would you plan to have such a turgidly slow release schedule? Why would you plan to sabotage the content that you put your heart and soul into by making us wait so long for it that it can never be worth the wait, no matter how good it is? And sabotage is the correct word here, because release schedule is a major factor in how much we as players enjoy the content in a live service game. The exact same patch with the exact same gameplay is simply going to be more fun and therefore better content if it's there for 3 months before new stuff comes along, rather than if it's there for 6 months before that new stuff arrives. It's as simple as that. I actually think that most of the content in Shadowlands has been pretty good, but when it's released at half the rate of the equivalent content in Legion, then it needs to be that much better than the Legion patches to even feel like it's the same quality. Like, the initial iteration of Conduit Energy was shit, a bad system, straight up, but there is no way it would ever have become such a big deal and genuine source of community anger and resentment if the opening patch of Shadowlands hadn't dragged on for almost 4 times longer than the first patch of Legion. And so, as much as maybe anything else, I hope we see a swifter, more energetic patch cadence in Dragonflight. Will that happen? Well, improving on Shadowlands is obviously such a low bar that it surely must be possible, right? But overall, I'm not really sure that there is any evidence that Blizz have learned this lesson over the last last couple of expansions. Remember, everyone thought that the BFA release schedule was too slow, and it was, and it's only got worse since then. So yeah, honestly, my hopes aren't high that Dragonflight will give us the deluge of fast-paced updates that I think the game really needs, and that's a major bummer to start the video off with, really, isn't it? So let's go to something a bit more optimistic next. Philosophy, core progression, alt-friendliness, account-wide unlocks, borrowed power, just some of the key buzzwords that the players and content creators have made mantras of in the last couple of years, and all of which goes towards forming the overall philosophy of how World of Warcraft is made and what kind of game it even is. And in fairness to Shadowlands, deterministic rewards was a phrase that was also on that list all the way through Legion and BFA before 9.0 genuinely did much to solve the random feeling nature of loot with crafted legendaries, PvP vendors, valor points, the Great Vault, and more recently the creation catalyst for creating tier pieces. All massive improvements that I think deserve a lot of praise, and the good news is that every current indication points towards Blizzard tackling those other buzzwords to a similar degree in Dragonflight, with what appears to be a fundamental shift in design philosophy that frankly was past time. The first signs of this shift came in patch 9.15, when covenants were opened up and Torghast rewards made unlimited, and then really became apparent when 9.2 gave us a whole zone and gameplay loop which was much less restricted and mandatory feeling than we have become used to. Beyond the exalted reputation to unlock your upgradable double legendary, there is no reason to engage with the features of Zereth Mortis other than because you want to, and in my opinion the zone is all the better for it. 9.25 looks to have some great ideas in making all the raids from the expansion relevant again, and since Dragonflight was announced a couple of weeks ago, Blizzard have been talking some seriously good talk. Ian basically saying in the recent roundtable,
it's from the start thinking about what should be account-wide, and the answer is nearly everything except getting gear from dungeons, from quests, the actual item level and power of your character that is their personal journey.
Ding! As an example, the closest that Dragonflight has to a one-off player power progression system, dragon riding, will indeed feature account-wide unlocks, as in you unlock, say, 10% faster glide speed on your Drake with your main, that upgrade will be unlocked and available for your alts too. Ding! The new renown style reputation framework will have rewards that are mostly account-wide, except for things like item level items. Ding! And of course, one of the brand new, shiny new box features of the update are the new talent trees, which after the last 3 expansions' obsession with expac specific one-off power progression systems that are wiped out and abandoned after the expansion ends, returns us to a core progression system that will follow us for at least the next few expansions. Ding, ding, ding! This big talk naturally invites a fair dollop of skepticism, but with the solid evidence of the second half of Shadowlands to back it up, I am cautiously optimistic that there are some lessons that Blizz really have taken on board, and I am very excited to see them put them into action. The Baddie. The Jailer sucked. He was a bad baddie. This is not a revelation. No one likes the Jailer. He is boring. He is bad. Which is a shame because it kind of made the game suck in lots of ways, but also because in so many ways, Zovaal himself was the answer to a lot of complaints about the boring, forced mystery of BFA. The community going into Shadowlands was crying out for an obvious bad guy who was obviously the final boss of the expansion right from the beginning and who had a constant presence throughout the expansion, Arthur Simrath style. And those are all boxes that the Jailer absolutely ticked. But unfortunately, the boxes marked engaging character, interesting motivations, and make us give even the slightest amount of shit about this guy were left blanker than the guest book at the Bath Hotel. Currently, we do not know who the big bad is in Dragonflight, but we've been told that there is one. So here's a chance to learn from the failing of Zovaal and give us in this new expansion an antagonist with a solid arc that we see happening in the game, who is more than the same old deep boomy voice and massive shoulders and tired bullshit, who is engaging and, I don't know, maybe even a touch sympathetic in their own right, and who basically doesn't feel like they were left out of the Ladybird My First Bumper book of boring villain cliches for kids for being too boring and cliche, and who we actually care about in one way or another when the time comes to face off. I've got a feeling that the final boss of this expansion will end up being someone who starts Dragonflight as our friend or ally, and I hope that their journey to big bad status is part of the story of the expansion, rather than the nipple-tastic window dressing that Zovaal turned out to be. And while we are on the subject of story, keep it a secret. Shh. patch, now would seem the perfect time to bring up the sensitive issue of the PTR, data mining, and the very strange way that many WoW players actually consume the main narrative of this game, namely through contextless and out-of-sequence data mine text found in the public test code months before actually playing through the finished content. This process has, in my opinion, hit an all-time low in Shadowlands, with all of the 9.2 Covenant campaign quests being published on Wowhead and other sites for people to enjoy in the absolute least enjoyable way possible. Months before the patch actually went live. Blizzard even put an entire completed cinematic on the PTR for the first time ever, in the hope of dampening the oncoming shitstorm by providing a little bit more context to the story that players were spoiling for themselves. It's not a great situation, honestly, and to be clear, I don't blame sites like Wowhead. If that stuff is in the build, it's going to be data mined and shared, and honestly, I would rather it be shared by people like them, who are really good at it. But I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old, but I'm kind of getting bored with consuming the story of my favourite video game initially in bullet point form a significant amount of time before experiencing it properly as the writers intended. Like, I'm not saying WoW is Citizen Kane or anything, it's better than Citizen Kane, obviously, but Citizen Kane would also suffer if it was consumed and largely judged by a bunch of jumbled sound bites and lines which sometimes don't even make it into the finished product. Now, the good news is that the devs sort of agree. Ian said in his interview with Asmongold that hiding more of the plot from the PTR is absolutely something that they are open to doing, which, okay, Ian, you slippery little eel man, I noticed you didn't say you were going to do it, but we know they can. The final Judgment chapter of the 9.2 campaign stayed encrypted in the public data until the day the chapter went live, and as a result, it felt like a genuine event that everyone was talking about when it happened, just like in-game story should. And for 9.2, they even kept the final 3 bosses of the Sepulchre of the First One raids untested and under wraps, which again was incredibly popular with the community. And I guess what I'm asking is, why can't that be the case with all of WoW's story? I mean, the simple answer is because there's a pretty strong chance that without all that public testing, all those story quests would break and be a massive old janky mess when they go live, and that's not a very optimal way to consume story either. There's also the argument made in many parts of the community that we need the story on the PTR so that players can check it for lore mistakes and insensitive content and push for changes where necessary. Honestly, I am sympathetic to that argument. I really am. I'm not dismissing it by any means, but I think on balance, you shouldn't advocate for utterly ruining the story of the video game you like for yourself just because you don't trust the writers not to dick it up. Even if the story is absolute pap, it will still be more enjoyable for it being a surprise, in my opinion. And this may be a surprise as well, but I can guarantee you pretty much everyone who works at Wowhead agrees with me on that, and perhaps unexpectedly would be absolutely thrilled if story stuff was encrypted and unable to be data mined. And when Wowhead are telling you that there's too much data mining going on and you need to sort your shit out, it might be time to sort your shit out and reassess the PTR choices you've made, you know? Keep new zones new. Really interesting lesson, this one. I've said already that I think the turgid patch cadence was the single biggest problem with Shadowlands, but I think this was a very big one too. That on one level or another, Korthia didn't really work. The gameplay and content of the zone was okay, with some neat ideas around relics, even if the main rep system was pretty annoying. But I don't think that many players can honestly say they were truly, really excited by the zone in quite the way you'd hope to be as the main feature of a first major patch that you just waited, what was it again? Oh yeah, 218 days for. And I genuinely think that one of the most important lessons we can draw from that was that in many ways, Korthia didn't actually feel like a new zone. Players had just spent, what was it again? Oh yeah, 218 days coming to the moor every single day, if they were doing it right. Something that was fun enough at first, apart from the no mounting, but yeah. After 218 days, I, for one, had probably had my fill of Super Hell and all its so very, very brownness. Enter 9.1, Chains of Domination, which was basically entirely set in the moor, with a raid in the moor, and assaults in the moor, and new areas to explore in the moor, and a new zone, which was literally attached to the moor, and also which was basically the moor if some trees had grown in the moor and then died. What players needed at that point was for Korthia to be a 100% completely different aesthetic to anything else in the entire expansion, but especially different from the moor. And honestly, I can see what they're going for, but I just think the whole look of Korthia and the fact that it felt like an extension to the moor was a major contributing factor to the whole lethargy and malaise around the patch, which saw 9.1 represent something of a nadir for World of Warcraft. I think there's an important lesson here. If you're going to have a new zone or even area in a major patch, make it very different from everything else you have in the expansion up until that point. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? But it's a fantasy game, you know? If Blizzard said, wow, crazy, I can't believe that in Korthia everything is rainbow colored. You know, there's actually a really cool mystery behind that, which you'll uncover in the weeks to come as you unlock all, then everyone would have been totally down with that. Look at what a palette cleanser Zereth Mortis is with its smooth angles and vibrant vegetation. So I guess what I'm saying is, Blizz, when you deliver those speedy patches throughout Dragonflight, like we all know you're going to, make sure those major patches give us a real change of tone. Cleanse my palate with the tasty sorbet of your patches, Blizz. Yeah, cleanse them real good. Right.
Hi guys, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a gamer. And not just that, a pro gamer. And you know what makes a pro gamer? Downing Mythic Sylvanas, trouncing Millennia with a full melee build, no Spirit Ash. I mean, I've done all those things, but no, it's having a headset. That's literally it. And luckily for you, it's Gaming Week on Amazon. From May 2nd to the 8th, you'll find some amazing deals on loads of cool stuff. Headsets, of course, mice, peripherals, and other goodies from gaming brands you know and love, including the insanely chunky and satisfying Astro A50 wireless headset, which, in addition to giving you ultimate gamer cred, has legitimately excellent audio quality, long battery life, and can even be upgraded with a dedicated mod kit. If you're more of a wired type of gal or guy, there's the Logitech G Pro X, which is particularly great for esports and has a blue voice mic for when you need comms to be extra crisp. And the only thing more pro than a pro headset? 2 headsets. Target the healer. Jungle, making the big calls. I said I'm making the big calls.
Hey, I'm a pro gamer too.
Where's your headset then?
That's a good point.
For these deals and more, check out amazon.co.uk/gamingweek anytime between May 2nd and 8th, and you too can get good gaming equipment.
Rewards and the fun of fun. I think Torghast and its implementation into Shadowlands is a really great case study of how you can develop a genuinely cool gameplay idea and then ruin it in other ways completely unconnected to that concept or design. And in Torghast's case, the whole thing that ruined it was the rewards that it gave. Something that was so crushingly easy to predict, we put out a video called Why Torghast is Wonderful and How Blizz Will Ruin It the first week that the Tower of the Damned hit the alpha. Because Torghast is good, solid fun. Blizzard made this feature right. They created a really fun mode of play, which they then made everyone hate by making it the only place you could get the soul ash that you needed to craft your Shadowlands legendaries, the most powerful items in the game. And by making it so that you could only earn a certain amount of soul ash per week, which most players would get in 2 runs of Torghast, thereby mandating that players do exactly 2 runs of Torghast per week. No more, no less. Which after, how long was that first patch? Oh yeah, 218 days. Basically led to the player base completely resenting the entire thing. And honestly, fair enough. In 9.15, the point at which Blizzard's new design philosophy supposedly kicked in, the cap on rewards from Torghast was removed, and overnight it became exactly 142.7% more fun, because players were going in there on their own terms, often to just completely blitz the mode for a day or a weekend to stock up on their currency or renown, and then perhaps not go back in for a few weeks again after that. And man, that felt good. 9.2 made it even better by making the main reward you get from Torghast be abundant elsewhere. You don't even need to go into Torghast really anymore, so basically whenever players do, it's because they want to. And undoubtedly, the metrics are showing less players are going into Torghast as a result, but those players that are having way more fun, and the ones that aren't don't feel resentful because they are not being made to. Basically what I'm saying is, trust players to find the fun in your fun stuff without forcing them into very restricted versions of it and making them hate it. You know, the same thing happened with islands in BFA actually, now I think of it. Really, it is okay to just make fun things which are fun and which players do just because they want to, like the Mage Tower. Oh, and that's a really good example actually, because if you really want to nudge players into your hot new thing, Blizz, and I get it, you've worked hard on it, you want people to do it. Don't put some bullshit power currency in there that players have to get. Just make the reward a unique and class-specific weapon appearance. I'm not even joking, that is literally all any WoW player whatever wants. You put a unique weapon appearance for my class in the Jailer's Gauntlet, I am doing the Jailer's Gauntlet. I am having fun doing it because it is fun, and when I'm eventually done, I might not touch it again. And okay, so I get that's not the kind of metrics that B-Boy Kotick is after. Now, of course, Dragonflight doesn't have a Torghast type feature, but Shadowlands did the idea right with a lot of the stuff in Zereth Mortis, with its focus on cosmetic and collectible rewards, and the way it doled out the legendary currency like sweets at a kid's party. So I am hopeful they are kind of trying to do some of what I talk about in this section. Just make fun stuff and let people have fun with it on their own terms. As Martin Luther King said in the famous book 1984, if you build it, they will come. And there we have it, the 6 big lessons that I think Dragonflight has to learn to avoid repeating the mistakes of Shadowlands. Look, Blizz, I made it easy for you. All you need to do is show this video to your whole team, learn the lessons I just said, and they will be able to make a grade A 9-carat banger of an expansion, and we will all be happy. But what do you think? What other lessons are there to draw from Shadowlands' rough ride? I would genuinely like to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us. Thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, seriously, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it, and remember, my name is Taliesin. Oh shit, I did it wrong.